Switching topics here. You've worked as a campaign manager, as a regional director, and mobilizer. So I'm wondering, could you share the process behind campaigning, organizing, and mobilizing?
Yeah. Thinking like more like my personal story or just kind of like how people get in and how that looks.
Both.
Okay. I got into my first kind of like overtly political job. It's funny. I say I was a pastor for a lot of years. Now I'm a campaign manager and organizer. So I've been in politics all along.
Mm,
I kind of say that in jest, but I think there's so much overlap between like kind of like when you're so much of like what being a spiritual leader, we tend to like think about like spirituality and then like life and be like, oh, like they're separate. They're not separate. Like,
mm-hmm.
when you're shaping the future and you're helping people, like you realize, or casting a vision for what is and what could be and what is reality and what are the factors around us. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like I've just seen so much overlap. There's also just the practicalities of like, if you're going to be in, the nonprofit world in general, no matter what, style or approach, you have to be good at managing volunteers. It's a very unique approach to leadership and management, everything from scheduling to expectations to emails, use of humor. I mean, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really surprised at the amount of like just one for one transition a lot of those skills have had in the roles. But as far as when I kind of found myself in this desert season and kind of seen how important I feel like the next number of years are going to be for our society. I just was kind of talking about this. I was really into the anti-racist work I was doing at the time here in the city. Through that, I got on a work group for the Racial and Ethnic Equity Commission
Mm-hmm.
here in town. Jerry Gully was putting that together when he was a supervisor on the county board, and my name was kind of put forward as someone who you should consider for the work group. That's how we met. Kind of navigated that season. I got a sense of he is a person that has woo in spades, and woo is a strength. Like it's in literally in the strength finder for Clifton. I've met a small group of people that have this. They're just the people like people want to be around. They want to help people smile when they're around them.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry had that, and you can't teach that. I think you just have it or you don't. You can do certain things to impact in social interaction, but I don't know if you can teach it. He
Mm-hmm.
had it. People wanted to follow him, and he had vision. He was a person that kind of knew what he believed and wanted to make the world better. And so he saw that in me as well, and he kind of saw me as more of a strategist and someone that can kind of see the turns that something's about to take and kind of get in front of it. And so yeah, when he decided to run for county executive, he approached me and said, "Hey, I think you should, serve as my campaign manager." And so yeah, just kind of where I was at the time. I'm like, yeah, this sounds like it aligns, so let's do this. And it was an amazing experience. Learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I would say campaign manager is a very difficult role because you have to know something about a lot of things. It's a role for a generalist.
Sure.
Um, you know, so the intricacy of finance in campaigns is something that shocks most people. If you want to start a business, there's someone at every bank that knows how to do that. So that knows like what needs to be filed when, how the process goes. They could like, here's a piece of paper, they lay it all out, no problem. Not every bank has someone that's like, yeah, here's how you set up a committee for a campaign. Here's how this goes. Here's when you have to report. In fact, it's like it's a niche small thing. So there's that. I mean, you're setting up a business. You need phones. You need an email. You need a website. You need domain. You need SEO. Now you're doing digital marketing. So you need someone that can create content, schedule content, do ads, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you are into all kinds of things. Oh, by the way, there's live events. There's, speeches, writing statements, trying to figure out, you got to get signatures. It was a spring election. I mean, you're out in the bitter cold asking for folks to sign on
Mm-hmm.
so you can get going. Of course, the sidewalk cleaners are here today.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so all that to say, uh, I learned a ton. I felt like we were drinking from the fire hose the whole time. One of like the best experiences of my life though. Met incredible people. It was the fusion of our social network, CNI, and there's people I met in the midst of that campaign I'm still super close with, still do work together with. And it was pretty amazing. I didn't make it out of the primary, but we tried to carve out that middle that it's just really tough in a partisan environment. And but in a hyper partisan age, we almost got 1 out of 5 votes in a primary, kind of coming from nothing. And so I'm really proud of that work. And but yeah, I just think I really loved that role because it was a journalist role, though. Like I feel like every day was different, and we got to be creative. I met some amazing artists, and really kind of got to know the ins and outs of Meta and Google and some other tools that it was just a really good learning experience. And then outside of that, one of the things I took away was, we tried to kind of run against partisanship and like, can we take a nonpartisan position and not make this a partisan exercise? And kind of just realizing there really isn't a middle to venture up. That honestly, some of it's just the mechanics of voting. By the time we had our first real forum where Jerry did great, and most people left feeling like, wow, Jerry really like stamped his place in this race. Almost a third of voters had already voted. Like game over. And once I kind of realized that, where it's like, okay, with early voting, with absentee voting, with how truly large the Democratic and Republican bases are, people that aren't going to listen to anything other than, is there an R or a D next to your name, or have I gotten an email that kind of says who our person is? And I don't necessarily demonize that. I mean, for some people, it's like that's a perfectly fine way to go about it, but it basically makes it nearly impossible for someone to kind of come in and truly run in a nonpartisan fashion. And so that was just a major learning for me. And and then in the midst of that season as well, continuing to see kind of the rise of major legislation being overturned. You're starting to see this kind of end game of the right-wing playbook for the last 50 years kind of come into its own, and realizing like, okay, we're in a moment right now. Like this is not business as usual. Kind of convinced me that, I really maybe should consider like getting more involved with the Democratic Party, because that's where my values are. And, so doing that. And then I just applied and, came on with the Wisconsin Democratic Party in the fall. I came on late. So it was, hey, come in here and just kind of get things ready to go for get out the vote.
Yeah.
Man, like that was very stretching. And it felt like, there was a lot at stake in that fall with the presidential election. I'm convinced a second Trump term would have been catastrophic, not only for our society, but for our democracy and maybe even the world. And I don't think that's hyperbolic, especially after January 6th and everything else we saw. So it was, I think, just important, on the heels of all that in 22, to really feel like Wisconsin being a swing state, seeing how close we were at the Supreme Court level, of seeing tens of thousands of votes being thrown out, seeing how important our governor was for holding the line on just sensible. We were watching all this really crazy homophobic, anti-education bills being passed all over the country. That'd be happening here if not for Tony Evers. And so, being a part of that, and also retaining Josh Call, enormous for our state. So I'm really proud of being a part of that. And so now I serve as one of the regional organizers in the Southeast. So the 3 counties that make up kind of the Southeast rectangle, and met a lot of amazing people. Obviously really excited about the results from the Supreme Court race. I feel like we're feeling hope again, that, we've been under the gerrymandered Walker era ethos for so long, and it's honestly really hurting our state. I think we've kind of normalized schools that don't have enough money. We've normalized healthcare just not being what it could be. if we just would accept federal funds, like just like certain like just no-brainer policy decisions that that we can maybe get done here in the next decade with fairer maps and a kind of a different legislature. And I also too feel like it seems like the more moderate Wisconsin voter is starting to realize like the MAGA thing is not helpful. Like even if that's their like, I would have a much more damning assessment of it. But I think there's enough people being like this, I'm not sure I like this. Like I'll take it for now. I think that's, I feel good about things moving forward, but really kind of what I've learned is it's really rewarding work. It's really hard work. The Democratic Party is a coalition party. It's not homogenous. And so it's, that makes it more difficult to kind of balance everyone's values. Everyone has the way they would do things, and I think just kind of my role is to help people kind of realize like, hey, as far as the political activity we do, what are the most needle moving activities that we could be a part of? Let's organize that well. I still bring a lot of my volunteer management and recruitment experience. It's really about just like giving people vision and courage, as well as just a good experience as much as you can. People are coming, they're making brave choices, to go out and, take a stand and talk to folks and make calls. And, I think that sacrifice and that bravery should be honored, and I think people should understand and have a sense of like, this is you taking your place in history, like this is amazing, this is it. This is you doing the work. You're going to beam with pride at some point, when you describe to your descendants, like what you did in this cultural moment, like you were out there. Like, I think that should be talked about now. We don't need to wait for hindsight. And so I think that's a big part of my role, the way I approach it. And then just making sure just things are organized. Like when people show up to something, that it runs and they feel like their time was well used and they feel like they understand like how everything clicks together, at least as much as necessary for that moment. So yeah, that's kind of been the journey, here, from campaign manager to organizer. And it's been helpful. I mean, having done both roles, I think I'm able to, to empathize with campaign managers, to, not take things personally when like texts take a while to come back and, realizing they have like 18 things they're working on.
Yeah.
You're like maybe 17 on the list, and that's fine, and then just bringing value to the whole system, knowing that candidates need to work together with their managers and managers need to work together with the organizers and the state party and the county parties and the different personalities. And then there's, the groups that advocate kind of adjacent to what you're doing, who you share values with. And like, there's just a lot of personalities, and just helping yourself and others remember, like, we're on the same team. Ultimately, what we're all here striving for is a more equal, more inclusive future. That's usually you can reduce down a lot of issues to that. And we just want people to be able to thrive and be themselves and still feel like they're a part of things here, and that's what we're about. And I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that, especially when there's stress and various opinions. And, our system, it's a winner take all deal. There's no trophies for second place. You don't get to kind of legislate if you get second, so
Yeah.
The stakes are high,
Sure.
and people feel it. And, people, they give a lot, and it's really great to do it together. I think the through line from my prior role to this one is I get out of bed, at least in this role, feeling like I did before, that what I'm doing is investing in shaping the future for a place where the light can shine a little brighter, and where everyone can be who they are and thrive. And that's kind of as I approach policy, and what my values are generally anchored in. If we can make a system where people can thrive in a cultural milieu where people can really be individuals, and both those things can happen together, like that's a free society. That's a truly free society. And we're not there yet. And but I think we've made a lot of progress, and I think there's a lot of other people that want that too. And you know, so again, I think I'm very thankful I get to do the work I do, because it feels very like frontline, and I get to make others, invite others to the process,
Sure.
which is great.
Well, man, I can't think of anybody else who would have done a better job. So
Thank you.
glad that we have you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, and especially in Kenosha County, I feel like we're seeing a lot of the benefit to, I think, just some relational trust with each other, with, I think, a state party that's very well run, very well run. I mean, the quality of leadership and of like the humans that make up the Dems, I'm continually impressed. I am not the smartest person by a long shot on any call I'm on with that group. Man, the smartest, most passionate people I've met are a part of this organization. And I think that speaks to not only the organization, but also the importance of the work we're doing. People just realize that, like, I want to be a part of what's going on. And at the county level, I think having the vision and the openness to saying, okay, like, how do we make the most of the strategy that's laid out, to win. And it's not really just about winning. It's about getting people elected who have the values, the vision, the policy that can allow for this individuality matched with like, systemic good policy where people can thrive. And it just feels really good. And we're definitely, I think we're seeing more and more people start to understand that, like, as a party, we're not perfect, but we do seem foundationally committed to progressive values, to moving forward, to giving everyone a place where they can be good, and where we can kind of meet the challenges head on and be honest about the past, realistic about the future, but not be afraid to like let each other inspire each other every now and again to say, like, how could we do better? Like, we could. Better is certainly possible, and let's do it. We can do it. Why not? So, yeah, I'm really proud to be a Democrat right now in this season. Proud to be a Kenosha Democrat. And I'm also proud to organize. I think it's a very, very, it's been a very rewarding role, because I think, like, just the work is important. And I think other people see that too. And so much of what I get is making other people around me feel bigger, to feel a sense of the moment, and to bring themselves, because I don't hold every strength. We need each other, right? And yeah, a part of a system that I feel like is positioned well. So if I do my role well, and everyone, kind of get Bill Belichick, if I do my job, everyone else does their, like, we're all good, right? We're going to do well. And I think so far we've seen that can be a thing.